You look at a massive skyscraper going up, or, a colossal hydroelectric dam being built, and you naturally think the most critical structure there is the steel framework or the concrete foundation.
Right. Yeah, it is the natural assumption.
You see the sheer physical weight of the project, the cranes, the thousands of workers, and you just assume that engineering is what holds it all together.
That the engineering is really only half the story. I mean, there is an entirely different architecture operating behind the scenes.
Exactly. There is this invisible structure holding that entire multi-billion-dollar project together. A financial nervous system.
Yeah, and if that system misfires...
If one signal gets dropped, the concrete doesn't get poured, the steel doesn't arrive, and the whole thing just grinds to an absolute halt. Welcome to today's deep dive.
We are so glad you're here.
You were listening because you want to understand the machinery behind the curtain. You want to gain knowledge quickly, thoroughly, and, well, without getting bogged down in information overload.
Which is exactly what we're going to do today.
Right, because today we have gotten our hands on the actual playbook, a detailed payment workflow checklist based on the FIDI contract guidelines.
And for anyone who might not be familiar with that acronym, FIDI is essentially the gold standard for international construction contract.
Right.
When governments or, multinational corporations build airports, high-speed railways, or power plants, this is very often the underlying rule book they use to manage the chaos.
And looking at this rule book, I mean, it's not just an accounting spreadsheet. It is a high-stakes survival guide.
Oh, absolutely.
Missing a single deadline on this checklist could literally mean leaving millions of dollars on the table, or worse, accidentally wiping out a contractor's legal rights entirely.
Yeah, it really does read like a bureaucratic thriller once you understand the actual stakes.
It totally does.
Because it reveals how trust is manufactured. You have these massive sums of money changing hands between parties who, frankly, might not entirely trust each other at the outset.
Right. I mean, an employer wants a dam built, and a contractor wants to get paid to build it.
Exactly. And every rule in this checklist exists to manage the underlying paranoia of that transaction.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning of the timeline. Before a single shovel hits the dirt, before anyone mixes a drop of cement, there is a massive administrative gate that has to be unlocked just to turn the money tap on.
Yeah, the contract lays out some very strict preconditions.
Like what?
Well, absolutely nothing is certified or paid by the engineer overseeing the project until two very specific things are verified. First, the contractor has to deliver a performance security to the employer.
Okay.
And it can't just be any security. It has to be in the required form and from an approved entity like a major bank. Second, the contractor's formal representative must be appointed and approved.
It's a lot like trying to buy a house, actually. You don't just walk into a bank, ask for a mortgage, and walk out with a duffel bag of cash.
You're definitely not.
You have to prove you have homeowner's insurance, you need the appraiser to sign off, you need your down payment secured. The bank demands proof that their risk is mitigated before they open the vault.
And take that house buying analogy a step further, right? If you don't provide that proof, the loan officer's hands are completely tied.
Yeah.
In this scenario, the employer is handing over an enormous site and eventually a massive sum of money. The performance security acts as their safety net.
Ah, so if the contractor abandons the job halfway through, the employer can call on that security to hire someone else to finish the work.
Exactly. Until that net is rigged, the engineer overseeing the payments will certify $0.
Wow. Okay, so once that gate is cleared, we get to the advance payment. To get this early injection of cash, the contractor has to secure an advance payment guarantee.
Right.
And once the employer has all these securities in hand, a very strict clock starts ticking. The engineer has exactly 14 days to issue a certificate for this advance payment.
And then the employer generally has 21 days to actually transfer the funds into the contractor's bank account.
Which seems fast, but I'm guessing that's necessary.
Oh, that timing is a difference between life and death for a project. Contractors carry massive mobilization costs up front.
Like what kind of costs?
Well, think about the logistics of getting dozens of massive cranes to a remote valley, setting up worker camps for thousands of people, hiring local labor, securing permits.
That's a lot of money out the door before you even start building.
Right, so that advance payment is the oxygen they need just to start breathing on site.
Okay, but I want to pause on the repayment of that advance, because the mechanics here are fascinating. The contract outlines how the contractor pays that early money back to the employer over time.
Yeah, the repayment structure is really clever.
Now wait, hold on. From a pure business perspective, If I loan someone a massive chunk of cash to start a job, I want a cut of their very first paycheck. I want to start getting my money back immediately.
Sure, that makes sense intuitively.
But the rules dictate a built-in delay. The employer lets them keep 100% of the money for their early bills.
Yep.
The repayment deductions don't actually start until the contractor's interim payments, the money they are earning for work done, exceed 10% of the total contract amount.
It seems counterintuitive if you're the one lending the money. You would think the employer is taking on unnecessary risk by waiting.
Exactly. Why wait until they hit the 10% mark of the entire contract value before you start clawing back the loan?
Well, if you look at the reality of how money moves on a construction site, that 10% buffer is a brilliantly pragmatic mechanism.
How so?
The earliest stages of a project are incredibly cash-intensive, but they produce the least amount of physically billable work. You are surveying land, digging foundation holes, clearing brush.
Because you can only bill for the dirt you actually moved.
Precisely. The actual invoices you submit for that early work are relatively small compared to what you just spent getting heavy machinery shipped halfway across the world.
Oh, I see.
If the employer immediately started chopping off 25% of those early small bills to recover the advance payment, they would instantly starve the contractor of cash flow.
The contractor wouldn't be able to pay the workers they just mobilized.
Right. The project would stall before it even got out of the ground. Waiting for the 10% threshold ensures the project has built up momentum.
It ensures the contractor is generating enough regular revenue from major construction activities before the debt collection begins.
Exactly.
It is a manufactured grace period to ensure survival. I love that. So the gates are open, the advance is secured, the project is finally moving.
Now comes the fun part.
We enter what is going to be the longest phase of the project, the monthly grind of interim payment certificates. These monthly bills are the engine of the project.
Yes, the IPCs.
And when you dig into the mechanics of these contracts, you realize something fascinating about the initial budget. The quantities listed in the official bill of quantities, the foundational document of the contract, are estimated only.
This is a detail that routinely trips up people who are new to large-scale infrastructure.
Wait, if I hire someone to build a custom deck in my backyard, we agree on the exact amount of wood, the exact number of screws, and a fixed price before they start.
Right, of course.
You're telling me on a billion-dollar dam, the actual list of materials is just an educated guess. How does a government budget for that if the numbers aren't real?
Well, you have to contrast your backyard deck, which is a lump sum contract, with a remeasurement contract.
Remeasurement.
Yeah, which is the default for massive civil engineering works under these FIDIC rules. Think about it. When you are literally moving mountains or tunneling under a river, you don't know exactly what you will find under the soil.
That makes sense.
You estimate the volume of rock to be excavated based on geological surveys, but until you blast it, you don't know the reality.
You might hit a massive vein of solid granite that the ground radar missed.
Exactly. So instead of a fixed total price, the contractor bids on the rate. They might say, I will charge you $100 per cubic meter of rock excavated.
Oh.
The initial contract estimates there will be 10,000 cubic meters. That gives the employer a baseline budget.
Okay, I follow.
But every single month, the engineer goes out with surveying equipment and measures what was actually dug. If it turns out to be 12,000 cubic meters, the contractor gets paid for 12,000.
So every single month is a massive auditing exercise.
Oh, it is a grueling, rolling calculation.
I can imagine.
The rules actually dictate a highly structured sequence for the contractor's monthly statement to make sure nothing is missed. It doesn't just list the work done.
What else goes into it?
Well, the contractor starts with the estimated value of the physical construction. Then they have to factor in adjustments for changes in local legislation that might have increased taxes.
Okay.
They have to calculate fluctuations in the cost of labor or materials due to inflation. They have to subtract a percentage for retention money, which is a security holdback.
Right.
They subtract the advance payment recovery we just discussed. They even have to calculate and deduct amounts for any electricity or water they used that was provided by the employer.
It's an entire algorithmic ecosystem happening every 28 days.
Yeah, it really is.
And there is a specific rule about paying for materials that really caught my attention. The contractor can actually get paid for materials before they are even installed.
Ah, yes. Plant and materials intended for the works.
Right. The engineer can certify a large percentage, often 80%, of the value of materials just for being delivered to the construction site, as long as there are strict records, bills of lading, and they are stored properly.
It comes back to the oxygen of cash flow. Let's say a contractor is building a massive wind farm. They order $20 million worth of custom turbine blades from a manufacturer overseas.
Okay.
The manufacturer demands payment upon delivery. The contractor cannot realistically float $20 million for 6 months while they wait for the towers to be built and the blades to actually be attached.
Wow. Yeah, that would be impossible.
So as long as those blades are sitting on the site properly protected from the elements and the paperwork proves they belong to the project, the employer essentially finances 80% of them to keep the supply chain moving.
But the ticking clock on all of this accounting is relentless. Let's look at the deadlines.
Let's do it.
The contractor submits this massive, complex monthly statement. The engineer then has 28 days to verify all those measurements and issue the official certificate.
Yep.
But the employer has 56 days to actually pay the money. And the critical detail here is when that 56-day clock starts. It starts the exact day the engineer receives the contractor's statement.
Which is huge.
Right. It does not start when the engineer issues the official certificate.
That decoupling is vital. It separates the employer's obligation to pay from the administrative efficiency of their own hired engineer.
So it's exactly like ordering at a restaurant.
Oh, how so?
Well, the 56-day payment clock starts ticking the second I hand my order to the waiter.
Right, exactly.
Regardless of how long it takes that waiter to walk to the kitchen or how long the kitchen takes to cook the food, my countdown has begun. If the engineer drags their feet, loses the paperwork, or takes 40 days instead of 28 to issue the certificate, it doesn't magically give the employer more time to pay. Day 56 is day 56.
The risk of the engineer's delay is borne entirely by the employer. I mean, the contractor shouldn't be penalized because the employer's representative is slow at math.
Which brings us to a really tense part of this entire process. We have this relentless 56-day clock ticking.
Ticking away.
The contractor's done the work, the engineer has measured it, the certificate is issued. But what happens when day 57 rolls around and the employer's bank account just doesn't transfer the funds?
Yeah, that's the big question.
What actual power does this contract give the contractor to fight back?
Well, a contract is merely a piece of paper unless it has consequences for bad behavior.
Right.
These rules have built-in, escalating consequences designed to force compliance and protect the contractor from being strung along.
And the first consequence is automatic financing charges. If the payment is late, interest kicks in immediately. And I love this detail. No formal legal claim or complicated notice is required to get this interest.
Nope, none.
It just happens automatically under the rules. It feels exactly like a late fee on a credit card, but instead of $30, we're talking about millions of dollars.
Billions.
And the rate is punitive. It's usually calculated at 3% above the central bank's lending rate, and it compounds monthly.
Compounding monthly is the brutal part for the employer. That interest debt grows exponentially the longer they withhold funds.
Which is the point.
Exactly. It is specifically designed to make holding on to the contractor's money a terrible financial decision. And because it's automatic, the contractor doesn't have to hire lawyers or initiate a dispute.
Right.
They simply add the accumulated interest to the very next month's statement.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
What if the bottleneck isn't the employer's bank account? What if the engineer decides they are furious with the contractor over the quality of a specific concrete pour and they just refuse to issue the certificate at all? Does the 56-day payment clock just freeze because there's no official invoice to pay against?
That is a common tactic in poorly run projects, actually, but this contract explicitly forbids it.
Wait, really?
The engineer does not have the power to simply throw the monthly statement in the trash and say, we're not paying you anything this month until you fix this wall.
They have to certify something.
Yes, they can withhold specific amounts, but only with proper formal notice and detailed calculation.
Okay, so if a retaining wall was built incorrectly, they can withhold the estimated cost to tear it down and rebuild it.
Exactly. But they are legally obligated to issue the certificate for all the other work, the earth moving, the steel tying, the paving, that was done correctly during that period.
I see.
If the engineer outright fails to issue the certificate within 28 days, it is a massive breach of the contract.
And if that breach happens, or if the employer just stubbornly refuses to pay the certified amount, the contractor unlocks the nuclear option.
The nuclear option.
The rules state that if the employer fails to pay within 42 days after the initial deadline, so you are looking at roughly 100 days of waiting for your money, the contractor gets the right to formally suspend work entirely.
And a suspended mega project is an employer's worst nightmare.
Why is it so catastrophic?
Because the meter is still running, but no progress is being made. You have millions of dollars of heavy equipment sitting idle, rusting in the sun.
Oh, wow.
You have a massive labor force that still needs to be paid or housed, even if they aren't swinging hammers. And most importantly, the entire completion schedule is ruined.
Right, because everything gets pushed back.
Exactly. Every day of delay pushes the revenue-generating phase of the project, say, opening the toll road or starting the power plant further into the future.
So the mere threat of the contractor downing tools and walking off the site is the ultimate leverage to ensure that financial nervous system keeps firing.
Absolutely.
So, assuming the crises are averted and the work continues, we eventually get to the end of the project. The physical building might be finished, the ribbon is cut, the politicians take their photos,
Everybody's happy.
but the financial unwinding takes months, sometimes years, and this final phase hides the most dangerous legal trap in the entire rulebook.
Oh, without a doubt. The long tail of a construction project is almost entirely administrative. The hard hats are gone, but the accountants and project managers are entering a minefield.
So let's talk about retention money first. Throughout the entire multi-year project, the employer has been holding back a small percentage of every single monthly paycheck as a security deposit.
Right.
Now that the project is done, that money is released, but it's released in halves. The first half is paid out when the project is substantially complete and handed over to the employer.
But that second half isn't released until after the defects notification period expires.
Why split it up? If the building is done and handed over, shouldn't the contractor get all their money?
Because buildings settle. Pipes that held pressure on day 1 might leak on day 30. The defects notification period, which is often a year or more, is basically a warranty period.
Okay, that makes sense.
Holding back that final chunk of retention money ensures the contractor actually answers the phone and comes back to fix the leaky roof or the cracked pavement.
Oh, because if they decide to just walk away, ignore the problem, the employer uses that remaining retention money to hire a local crew to fix the defects.
Exactly. It's the ultimate leash.
Once that period ends, we trigger an absolute avalanche of final paperwork. And to understand why this is so complex, you have to picture the reality of a 5-year project ending.
It's chaotic.
Yeah. Thousands of minor variations, arguments over the cost of an extra light switch, delays caused by weather. It all has to be reconciled into one final bill.
It really is a massive undertaking.
The contractor submits a draft final statement, and importantly, they have to submit a formal discharge. This document essentially confirms that once this final check clears, it represents the full and final settlement of everything owed.
Although a savvy contractor will use that discharge to carve out exceptions.
What do you mean?
Well, if they are currently in a fierce arbitration battle over a major delay claim, they will explicitly state in the discharge that they are reserving their rights on that specific dispute.
Right, you don't want to accidentally sign away a pending lawsuit.
Definitely not.
But here is the trap. The terrifying climax of this entire bureaucratic journey.
Here it comes.
The engineer takes all that final paperwork and issues the ultimate document, the final payment certificate. If the contractor disagrees with the final amounts the engineer decided on, say the engineer arbitrarily slashed $1 million off the final bill, the rules state the contractor has exactly 56 days to file a formal notice of claim.
And we cannot stress this enough. This is a peremptory deadline.
Wait, let me get this straight.
Okay.
You're telling me a contractor could have spent 5 years building an international airport. They've weathered supply chain crashes, labor shortages, global pandemics, and in the chaotic final days of the project, while the trailers are being packed up and the key personnel are already flying out to start a new job in another country.
Yes.
If someone misses one single email by day 57 after receiving that final certificate, their right to dispute millions of dollars simply vanishes.
It completely vanishes.
Right.
Yeah, the wording in the guidelines is unforgiving. If you fail to give that specific notice within 56 days, you are legally deemed to have accepted the engineer's final numbers no matter how unfair they are.
That is wild.
The employer is immediately discharged from all further liability. Barring extremely rare legal exceptions like proven fraud or gross negligence, the door is locked, bolted, and welded shut.
That is absolutely brutal. One missed calendar reminder can wipe out years of hard-fought profit.
It is the brutal reality of these international frameworks. For you, the listener, trying to understand how this ecosystem operates, you have to realize that administrative discipline is not just a back-office function.
It's life or death.
It is a core survival trait, just as critical as engineering skill. You can pour the most perfect concrete in the world, But if your document control team misses that 56-day window, your company could face financial ruin.
Wow.
The contract and the billions of dollars behind it demands finality. The books cannot stay open forever.
So bringing it all together for you, we have traced the financial nervous system of a mega project from its very first pulse to its final tense conclusion.
Quite a journey.
We saw the administrative gates that demand performance securities before a single dollar moves.
Huh.
We explored the logic behind the advance payment, letting the contractor catch their breath and build momentum before the employer starts clawing back the loan.
And we waded through the monthly remeasurement cycle, revealing that a massive budget is often just a rolling estimate requiring constant, grueling auditing.
Right, and how the 56-day payment clock places the risk of delay squarely on the employer.
Exactly.
We looked at the teeth of the system, the automatic compounding interest rates, and the terrifying leverage a contractor wields when they threaten to suspend work entirely.
And finally, we navigated that chaotic long tail. The slow release of retention money to ensure defects are fixed, and that devastating 56-day trap at the very end where a missed deadline can wipe out years of legal rights.
Whether you are prepping for a boardroom negotiation, trying to better manage a project yourself, or just insanely curious about how the massive global infrastructure that surrounds you actually gets built, well, this deep dive proves that power doesn't just reside in the money itself.
So true.
Power resides in mastering the workflow, understanding the logic of the rules, and never ever missing a deadline.
As we wrap up, I would leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Please do.
Look at the sheer density of the rules we've been discussing. Every single mandate for a written notice, every 28-day ticking clock, every specific requirement for an approved bank guarantee.
Yeah.
None of this was created in a vacuum. It was all written because at some point in history, a project failed exactly in that gap. Someone walked away with an advance payment and never returned. An engineer refused to certify a bill out of spite. A contractor hid a defect and vanished.
Every rule has a backstory.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, is a modern construction contract actually a blueprint for building something new, or is it really just a towering monument to every breakdown of human trust that came before it?
That is a wild perspective. Every rule is the scar from a past disaster.
Yep.
And that perfectly brings us back to where we started. If this contract is the nervous system of a mega project, it is a system that has evolved to be highly sensitive to pain, ready to trigger reflexes at a moment's notice to keep the organism alive and moving forward.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the structures around you and keep exploring the hidden systems that run the world.
Download the free PDF payment checklist from our website. See the link in the description. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and see you next time.